Dirty bulking, clean bulking. Dirty bulking, clean bulking. This has been an age-old debate. Thank you very much, Dor. This has been an age-old debate since the birth of the fitness industry. What is better, to dirty bulk or clean bulk? In today's video, I'm going to break down both of them, the pros, the cons. I'm going to explain what they actually are so you're clear on the basics, and I'm going to give you guys my ultimate recommendation. Over the past 4.5 years, I've gained over 27 kilos and I have done both of these myself. I'm going to talk about my personal experiences and ultimately my recommendation for you guys so you avoid the pitfalls and the mistakes I made so you can make progress even faster than me and get even bigger than I currently am right now. So let's get into section 1 of this video, which is basically going to be what they both are, right? As I say in all of my YouTube videos, it's so important that you understand the basics and the fundamentals before you deep dive further into a topic, okay? So what is dirty bulking and what is clean bulking? They are essentially in the name, right? So dirty bulking is basically where you don't necessarily care about the quality of the food you're eating and you're very flexible and you're very, very free and liberated with your diet. So if you want a pizza on a Tuesday afternoon, you call up your local pizza place and you get one delivered to your door. You don't necessarily care where the protein comes from, you don't necessarily care whether the food is processed or not, and you just go for the calories at the end of the day, right? However, on the contrary, clean bulking is the complete opposite. Clean bulking is where you take care and you prioritize the quality of the foods you eat. You eat whole foods, you eat natural ingredients, you eat very high nutrient dense meals, and you obviously want to eat healthy, right? So, you know, dirty bulking is more unhealthy and clean bulking is healthy. Now, which one is best for a beginner? I'm going to go through the pros and cons and then I'm going to get into my ultimate recommendation. So let's start with the pros and the benefits of both clean and dirty bulking. So let's start with the clean side of things. So obviously, as you're eating healthier, you're going to be eating leaner food. You're going to put on weight at a leaner rate, which basically means you're going to minimize the amount of fat you put on as much as possible, and as a consequence it's going to be easier to cut down in the long term. Think about it, if you put on less fat, then you've got even less to lose in the long term. Therefore, it's just going to make the process a lot easier, less sufferable, and you're going to have a better time doing it, right? And you're probably going to get leaner in the long term. And obviously, when you're on a clean diet, you're going to be having a better nutrient intake. You're going to have more stable energy levels. You're not going to be eating as much processed and sugary foods. Therefore, you're not going to have energy crashes. You're going to be feeling at a higher level of vibration in terms of energy every day. You're going to be feeling good. Your morale is going to be better. Your mental health is going to be better. If you know that you're actually doing something good for yourself by eating clean food, you're going to sit back and relax at the end of the day and think, I've absolutely smashed it today and I'm feeling better than I ever fucking have, right? And that is what a clean diet does. Furthermore, it's going to help support your long-term health, and it's also going to help you improve your digestive system health and efficiency. Therefore, it's going to be even easier to eat more food. You know, if you've got a better operating digestive system, then it's going to be even better. You know, you're going to be able to eat food easier, and it's going to help you improve your recovery. You're going to be sending high quality nutrients to the muscles that may be sore after a workout, which is going to help you inevitably enhance your rate of recovery, right? It's also going to help you improve your sleep as well. And sleep is super important for our daily function, our well-being, our morale, and overall making our life better than it currently is right now, right? So let's move on to the flip side and talk about the benefits of dirty bulking, right? So you're obviously going to be able to eat in a surplus a lot easier, right? With dirty bulking, the foods are more calorie dense, meaning that they are smaller in size, but they've got more calories in them. Therefore, it's going to be a lot easier to eat in your calorie surplus at the end. Furthermore, the foods are more accessible as well, right? You know, if you want a takeaway, you can just order it. It's very little effort and you can get it to your door nowadays, probably within 30 minutes, right? You don't have to spend a long time cooking. As the foods are processed, they may be frozen and they may be really easy to bung in the microwave for a few minutes. So if you're a busy guy, then having some dirty meals every now and then probably isn't a bad option, right? Furthermore, eating junk and cheat meals all the time satisfy your cravings in the short term, right? This can be good and this can be bad. It's all subjective to you. Personally, I don't necessarily like to satisfy anything in the short term, as the gym is a long-term game. However, as I said, this is all subjective to you, right? So without further ado, let's move on to the cons of both clean and dirty bulking. And once again, starting with the clean side of things, okay? So first of all, the food volume is going to be more, right? If you're having whole ingredients and you're going to be eating more healthy, right, you know, the foods are going to inevitably be bigger. They're going to be less calorie dense. However, if you implement my ultimate recommendation at the end of this video, you will not have a problem with this con. And this won't be a disadvantage to you because you won't have this problem, right? The second thing is that it may take more time to cook, right? As I said, because you're going to be eating more whole foods and more ingredients, it's going to take longer to prepare and get those meals ready, right? However, there are ways you can minimize this, and if you go to my other YouTube videos, you will find out exactly how, right? And the final con of the clean side of things is that it is going to feel more restrictive, right? You're obviously going to be limiting yourself from, you know, the junk food, the pleasurable food that you've always maybe loved as a kid, right? And this could sort of play on your mental strings a little bit, right? So there are the only cons for clean bulking, right? And let's move on to the flip side and talk about the cons of dirty bulking, okay? So you're going to accumulate more fat, as I said, because you're eating in a faster calorie surplus, the foods are going to be more dense, you're going to be consuming more sugar, they're going to be processed foods, you are going to inevitably accumulate more fat. Therefore, that is going to make the cutting process and the fat loss process in the long term a lot harder, a lot longer, a lot more difficult, and you're going to be eating less calories because you have more fat to lose, right? So ultimately, it is a test of delayed gratification. The ultimate goal of the bulk is to minimize fat gain as much as possible, and dirty bulking doesn't necessarily align with that goal, right? Because you are going to put on more fat, therefore it's going to take longer to lose it in the long term. It's also probably the unhealthier option in the long term as well. If you're eating sugar and processed foods, that's not necessarily going to sit well with you. That's also going to affect your digestive system's health, right? And I really like to think about this like putting the wrong petrol in a car, right? So let's say you have a diesel car and you put petrol in a diesel car, right? Because the diesel car needs diesel and you put petrol in it, it's gonna break. It's not gonna work because you put the wrong source in it, right? And it's the exact same thing with our body and feeding our body unhealthy, high processed, high sugar meals, right? Our body's not necessarily going to accept it as much because you're not necessarily feeding it the right fuel, right? Therefore, it's going to affect your digestive system and it could potentially lead to some issues in the long term. It could also help you build bad eating habits in the long term, which is obviously not good because we need to be eating healthy, right? So you don't necessarily want to go too extreme with dirty bulk. You're also going to have energy crashes from the sugar and the processed foods. You're going to be up here 1 minute and then you're going to go down here the next minute. And this can ultimately affect your morale, the quality of your life, your sleep, your relationships. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest going to the extremity of fully dirty bulking. So as you may have identified throughout this video, there are a couple of trends, right? And those trends are that there is way more pros for clean bulking and there is way less cons for clean bulking. So you're probably thinking right now, I'm going to say that you've got to 100% clean bulk and don't dirty bulk at all. However, that is not necessarily my thought and from my experience, right? My ultimate recommendation to you is to have a little bit of both, right? But more specifically, putting a lot more emphasis on the clean side than the dirty side, right? You may be asking, but you've just said that there is less pros for dirty bulking and there is way more cons for it. So why would you want to keep it in your diet? Well, us humans have this weird tendency of when we restrict and limit ourselves from something, we desire it more. Have you heard the old saying, you don't appreciate something until you don't have it? That is exactly what is going to happen here. That is exactly what is going to happen here, right? If you limit yourself from junk foods and unhealthy foods, then you're going to crave it more. You're going to desire it more, and you're going to give into those cravings at some point, and that can lead to you going off track with your diet very, very easily. So we want to keep it in every now and then, and what that is going to do is satisfy our cravings for this type of food. Therefore, that is going to keep us motivated, and we are going to have the increased desire to keep eating clean in the long term, and that is going to help us build up good dietary habits, right? So essentially, by incorporating both and mainly clean bulking, you're pretty much getting rid of the cons, right? As much as you can. It's a win-win situation, right? You don't restrict yourself from the meals you may like, for example, a pizza or a burger every now and then. That's going to motivate you to eat clean. Therefore, you are essentially eliminating most of the cons, right? Which is a win-win situation. So in order to do this effectively, my ultimate bulking recommendation is following the 85-15 rule, right? And this basically refers to eating clean 85% of the time and eating a little bit dirty and and eating whatever you want 15% of the time. So in order to work this out for you and to actually know how many meals you can eat clean and how many you can go off plan with, I have a little framework for you guys. So step one, I want you to obviously, reflect on how many meals you eat every day, right? So for example, on my bulk, I'm eating 4 meals every day. You may eat 3, you may eat 5, it's all individual. Just get the number that you eat every single day, right? And then once you've got that number, we want to figure out how many meals we eat every week, right? So what you want to do is times that number you've just found. So for example, in my case, 4 meals a day, and you want to times that by 7, because there is obviously 7 days in a normal week, right? So if I were to do this for myself, I would times 4 by 7, and that would get me 28. So that means I eat 28 meals every week, right? And now what you want to do from here is you want to work out 85% of 28, and you want to work out 15% of 28, right? So what you want to do is you want to times 28, so the amount of meals you eat every week, by 0.85, and that is going to get you 85% of your meals. So in my case, 28 times 0.85 would be 24 meals, right? So 24 meals every single week would be clean, right? And then the difference you find between 24 and 28, which is obviously 4, that is the amount of dirty cheat meals I can have every week. And what this is going to do is when you're eating clean, you're going to be motivated, because if you eat clean now, you'll have the reward of the junk and the pleasurable and the instantly gratifying food later on. For example, if you put your cheat meals on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, right? And then when you're eating your cheat meals, you're going to then get even more motivation to eat clean again, because you realize how fucking good you feel when you eat clean. So if you implement the 85-15 rule, it's going to be a never-ending motivational spiral, which is going to keep you eating clean. That's going to ultimately minimize fat gain, right? And you may be thinking, but Ryan, because you're eating dirty, you're not necessarily going to minimize fat gain. Well, yes, that is technically true. However, as a beginner, you need to build things up, right? You're not going to be able to sustain a 100% clean diet for 6 months, because you're going to be like a balloon that keeps getting pumped, and you're eventually going to pop. And when you pop, that is you giving into your cravings, right? So it's super important that we build it up slowly, and eventually down the line, in the long term, you'll be able to sustain a clean and healthy diet, right? So to conclude this video, I would highly recommend you follow the 85-15 rule. Find out how many meals you're going to be eating clean, find out how many meals you're going to be eating dirty every week, and this is ultimately going to help you bulk in the best way possible, right? So that is now the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you want more help from me beyond these YouTube videos, and you want more help incorporating the clean and dirty bulking method, the 85-15 rule, then I have a free community that's going to be the top link in the description. I'm currently helping over 250 men just like you, and we've actually currently just had our very first Slim to Sculpt transformation, and I would absolutely love to have you as the second transformation throughout this community. It's completely free, no charges, so change your life for free. But anyways, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, leave a comment down below, and if you want to stay around, I upload 3 times every week, so a subscription would genuinely go a long way, and I hope my videos can now act as the lighthouse to the lost ship at sea for you. So I'll see you in the next one.